Thank you. The next item of business is topical questions. And at question number 1, I call George Adam.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what assessment is made of implications for Scotland's public services of the UK Government's proposed reforms to the immigration system.
Minister Cocab Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Scotland's public services, communities and economy all benefit from inward migration. The Scottish Government does not support the majority of the proposals within the UK Immigration White Paper and calls on the UK Government to reverse these deeply damaging measures. The decision to end international care worker recruitment and planned changes to the graduate visa and skilled worker visa are short-sighted and will prove damaging to sectors which necessarily rely on international talent. Scotland's working age population is growing only because of migration. Scotland requires a tailored approach to migration to meet our distinct demographic and economic needs.
George Adam.
I thank the Minister for her answer. Scottish Carers warned that Labour's plans to scrap care workers' visa route would be profoundly damaging to Scotland's social care sector and fails to recognise the country's distinct demographic and workforce challenges, putting vital services at risk and directly harming those who rely on them. Does the Minister share these concerns, and can she confirm whether the Scottish Government was consulted, or is Scotland's demographic reality once again an afterthought for Westminster?
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I fully agree with the comments that were made by Scottish Care. Plan to end the international recruitment of care workers will be devastating for the care sector in Scotland. And whilst I can confirm that the Scottish Government issued a comprehensive, evidence-based proposal document to the Home Office during their development of the Immigration White Paper, there has been no substantive engagement on any of the policy proposals submitted by the Scottish Government, and the White Paper completely fails to account for Scotland's distinct demographic needs. The ban on international recruitment of care workers must not be implemented. Scotland is a welcoming nation, and one of the key principles underpinning our approach to migration is to encourage and enable long-term settlement in Scotland, welcoming people from across the world to Scotland to work, raise families and make a positive contribution to society.
George Adam.
I thank the Minister once again. Labour's plan to pull up the drawbridge mimics that of Nigel Farage's reform, rather than challenging him, and puts Scotland's public services at risk as well. Inward migration is vital for our economy and our society. Will the Minister assure us that our Scottish Government will reject Labour's pandering to Farage's politics, and does she agree that the UK Government stance betrays the open and welcome nation that we all aspire to be in Scotland?
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It is concerning that we have not heard anything from Scottish Labour on these plans, which frankly are designed by a Prime Minister simply pandering to Nigel Farage, instead of considering any of Scotland's demographic needs. Scotland is a welcoming nation, and one of the key principles that underpin our approach to migration is to encourage people to come here and live here and raise their families here, contribute to the economy by working, and make a positive contribution to not only society but also our culture. And Scotland will continue to actively welcome inward migration, recognise the benefits that it brings to our communities, public sector and economy. And through our online platform, Scotland's Migration Service, we will continue to attract talent to Scotland to address the barriers faced by migrants and employers when navigating the UK's increasingly unsuitable immigration system.
Thank you. Question number 2, Tess White.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. After that rah-rah by the Scottish Government Minister, to ask the Scottish Government...
Sorry, Miss White. Miss White, I have called you to ask question number 2 on topical questions, and I would ask that you restrict yourself to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the announcement that NHS Grampian has been escalated to Stage 4 of NHS Scotland's National Performance Framework for Finance, Leadership and Governance.
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Firstly, it's important to acknowledge that staff in NHS Grampian continue to work tirelessly to deliver the high-quality healthcare we expect. I have been able to see that first-hand in the visits that I have made in Grampian of late. Escalation to Stage 4 will bring enhanced support and scrutiny from the Scottish Government. This will include a whole-system diagnostic to be carried out by an external consultancy, expected to conclude in June, to help inform a tailored package of support. This intervention will provide a robust basis for the wider transformational work required over the longer term in NHS Grampian to ensure the sustainable delivery of high-quality healthcare services.
White.
Cabinet Secretary, the SNP government has been repeatedly warned about the perfect storm in NHS Grampian. Wherever you look, from waiting times to ambulance turnaround times, NHS Grampian is on its knees. And it's little wonder when it has the lowest bed base in the whole of Scotland. A decade of chronic underfunding has put unsustainable pressure on NHS staff, and there are huge implications for patient safety. Just this week, frontline workers raised the alarm in the Press and Journal about patients dying and getting harmed because ambulances are still queuing for hours at a time outside Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. Does the Cabinet Secretary finally accept that his government has shortchanged NHS Grampian for years?
Cabinet Secretary.
No, I don't. In 25-26, health boards will receive increased investment in their baseline funding, totalling £16.2 billion, with NHS Grampian receiving over £1.34 billion. NHS Grampian is receiving a 3% baseline uplift of £39.2 million. It represents a 0.6% real terms increase compared to 24-25. The NRAC formula is an objective measure of the need for healthcare services across Scotland, and the approach taken by the Scottish Government has been to move boards towards NRAC parity, and the NHS Grampian's £800,000 share of the £55 million additional parity maintains the board within 0.6% of NRAC parity, and it's quite something for Ms White to raise funding of our public services when her party wants to take £1 billion out of public investment in Scotland.
Tess White.
Cabinet Secretary, Presiding Officer, this is not about POPs. The deepening crisis in NHS Grampian isn't just about board meetings and balance sheets. It's about people. A mother in her mid-70s, herself a nurse by profession, had a bad fall after her husband spoke to NHS 24 and called 999. An ambulance was eventually dispatched. He was advised the wait would be 4 to 8 hours. As she was drifting in and out of consciousness, her family took the really difficult decision to lift her and drive to Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. Tragically, after they arrived, they were told she would soon pass. Her family is shocked and massively traumatised by what happened, but above all, they're haunted by what happened and how it happened. We've had enough of the Cabinet Secretary's excuses. He needs to know just how bad it is on the ground so that families aren't asking the same difficult questions. So my ask, Cabinet Secretary, not just to do visits that are pre-arranged, will you please do a shift with an ambulance crew in Grampian and see it for yourself? And that's a shift that interfaces with accident and emergency. Thank you.
Always through the chair, please, members. Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. First of all, I have shadowed frontline shifts, not in NHS Grampian, I accept, but I have shadowed shifts, so I can see what the situation is like for those serving our public services on the front line in health and social care. The second point that I make is in response to the constituency representation that Ms White makes there, and she paints an unacceptable picture for that family and for those that are served by NHS Grampian in terms of some of the pressures that have been set. And I declare an interest as having family member living in Grampian, served by NHS Grampian, and we all have a personal vested interest in making sure that our public services work well, which is exactly why we've escalated NHS Grampian to level 4 and why we continue to provide that additional support and scrutiny.
I call Jackie Dumbar.
Can the Cabinet Secretary advise what support is provided to the Board of NHS Grampian at level 4 of the escalation framework? And can he also advise when the Board will set out a recovery plan to deliver an improved position with that support?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, President Officer, and I thank Jackie Dumbar for her question. Escalation to stage 4 of the framework brings enhanced scrutiny and support from the Government, and we will work with the Board to ensure sustained improvement. Action taken and any support provided at level 4 is tailored to the circumstances and will take account of the context in each case. NHS Grampian will receive a tailored package of support as a result of the escalation to stage 4, starting with the diagnostic report being delivered by the external consultancy. We expect the report to be delivered in June and set out key areas of focus for the Board to improve sustainability. A more detailed, tailored support package will be designed based on the recommendations of the report, and NHS Grampian's financial recovery plan will be provided to the Scottish Government in the 7th of June, with the external diagnostic being delivered later in June. This will allow the diagnostic report to verify or improve upon Grampian's financial forecasts.
Michael Mara.
In a briefing on 7th of March, the leadership of NHS Grampian informed MSPs the Health Board was projecting a £68 million deficit in 25-26. That was to be submitted to the Minister on the 17th of March. So the Health Secretary has known about the extent of the deficit for 2 months. So what has triggered the escalation of NHS Grampian to stage 4 now? Do those figures remain the same? What has changed?
Cabinet Secretary.
Michael Mara rightly points to the financial position, which is one of the primary considerations, and we want to make sure that as quickly as possible the Board have a grip upon the financial position. That's why we're sending in the external consultants. That's why there is additional Scottish Government support so that we can get a handle on the financial position in NHS Grampian, and also so that we can get an assurance that in any savings that are being required to be made, it will not impact on frontline services, but will contribute to an improvement in the position of service delivery within Grampian.
Douglas Lumsden.
Thank you, President Officer. I fully support the escalation to level 4. I called it during a members' debate just 2 weeks ago. 2 months ago, I asked the Cabinet Secretary if he had confidence in the Board. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary today if he has confidence in the Chair of NHS Grampian?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I call Beatrice Wishart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Pregnant women, people waiting for surgery, cancer patients, people across my constituency rely on NHS Grampian. What reassurances can the Cabinet Secretary give that these stage 4 measures will not negatively impact patients from Shetland who have to access NHS Grampian services?
Cabinet Secretary.
I readily recognise the situation that Beatrice Wishart reflects, as indeed her colleague in front, Liam MacArthur, also has interaction, his constituents have interaction with NHS Grampian, and we will be working, my officials, the consultancy, in terms of getting NHS Grampian to a more sustainable financial position, and in terms of improved service delivery, to ensure that those residents of Grampian, as well as Beatrice Wishart's constituents and Liam MacArthur's constituents, can see an improvement in service and financial sustainability.
Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I welcome the escalation to level 4 of the framework. I certainly welcome the support that the Cabinet Secretary will put into NHS Grampian. Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary if those that are going in to help NHS Grampian will take a look at the excessive bureaucracy that exists within the organisation, in my opinion, to ensure that that is eradicated so that folk can do their level best for patients?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, I thank Kevin Stewart for his question. Recognise the considerable contribution that he has been making in this regard over recent months, and I am clear that my officials and those supporting NHS Grampian should be looking at all possible options that can see an improvement in the financial position and an improvement in service delivery. I reiterate the point that I made at the outset of my first answer, which is that the staff at NHS Grampian are doing an incredible job in challenging circumstances to deliver for people across Grampian and indeed Orkney and Shetland. That is recognised, and I want to enable them to go even further.
Jackie Baillie.
In April, NHS Grampian warned that the Health Board has too few acute hospital beds and too few staff in some key service areas to cope with demand, and that there is not enough funding or physical space to make any significant improvement. What assurances can the SNP government give that moving to level 4 will see patients in Grampian getting the treatment they need?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank Jackie Baillie for that question, because it recognises what is at the heart of this escalation, which is about improvement of service and financial sustainability within Grampian, with a view to patient services being improved. That is why we have escalated the board to level 4. So the decisions and the options that come through from the support package and the increased scrutiny is all about making sure that the patient experience is improved and that we see services delivered in a more sustainable way to make sure we satisfy Jackie Baillie's concerns.
Rachel Hamilton.
Thank you. A letter from Alan Gray, Director of Health and Social Care Finance, confirmed that brokerage would not be available for 25-26 and that NHS boards would be expected to work towards a break-even trajectory in their 3-year financial plans. If a break-even isn't possible and no deficit is permitted, how much flexibility is there in brokerage repayments, and will government consider a different funding formula for some of these NHS boards that are struggling?
As the question relates to the substantive question.
So in terms of NHS Grampian, they have been provided with brokerage on 2 consecutive years, and I think everybody has been able to see publicly the scrutiny that has been put upon that. I'm clear that I want boards, all boards, to move to a break-even position as quickly as possible. There are more that are in that position than there have been in the past. Grampian is in a position of particular difficulty, and that's why we're putting the support and scrutiny in order to turn that around. But clearly, as I've set out, we are looking to that financial sustainability to happen, not to the detriment of frontline services, and that's why we need to provide that additional support through level 4 escalation.
Thank you. That concludes topical questions.